11 minutes past 8. Karibu sana 104.5 Vibes Radio with Kevin Bryan. Leo niko solo lakini solo mission, but conversations bado zina go down. Remember, you can find us using the hashtag Morning Vibes. We are live on YouTube, on Facebook. Kwa hivyo ingia hapo hivyo, the handle is @VibesRadioKE. Number 1, let me know where you are. Unasikiza ukiwa wapi? I know you're also probably in another country. We're live. Yes. Just represent your area code. Na unishow maze, when I ask you, changia with regards to I just like to hear your opinion about easy conversations tunakuanga nazo earlier with Dennis Aseto. We talked about the front page of the dailies. Imeandikwa hope after demo deal. Many parts of the country right now tunachiki it's peaceful and which is good, but kuna wase wengi wamesema pana tutaki handshake atudai. DP Rigathi Gachagua actually cleared the air. He said that, listen guys, this is not a handshake. This is a bipartisan process. Tunataka tu kusort out maneno ya IEBC. Kimani Chungwa pia amesema, guys, do I have to clarify? Nimecheza hizo footage. But yes, my friend, the very amazing, talented, smart, everything, caller, brilliant, Nerima Wako is in the building. Yeah, umesikia energy.
I'm good, you have energy. Like whatever you're taking. Nipatie tu kidogo.
You're sasa ni dangerous. Whatever I'm taking. You're ni dangerous.
I need to be on your level.
How are you doing, Lakini?
I'm doing good.
Last time we had a conversation tulikuwa coastal. Ilikuwa fiti, yeah.
Nice.
So, I'm curious, how are you coping with this weather?
It's tough. Almost I had to wake up sana like by 4 just to make sure nifike hapa on time.
Exactly.
But keeping warm, trying not to get homa. Enough people are sick, but
so there's actually a bug,
it needs to rain.
Yeah, kuna kahoma ina go through,
yes,
ina go around. Brandon Sally pay him beat. He was supposed to be here today, but he couldn't make it. Now the other thing is also the fact that but is this usually your time ya kuamka mapema hivi?
Yeah. Usually I have to.
The reason I'm asking is because nilicheki our deputy president pia amekuwa rada.
That is now too early. 5 a.m. Unafika ofisi na bado kuna giza.
That's the spirit. My friend, running a country like this. Complicated. Lazima go up and early.
Uliona hiyo picha za files. They're the same level. Unafika mapema hivyo na vitu hazisongangi. They're the same level.
It's true, man.
So what work are you doing?
So you think it was just for sure?
I think, yeah.
Hey, sour. But let's talk about the truce between the president and former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. This has been received in polarized situation. Majority of Kenyans are happy because finally we can breathe. We don't know whether on Monday tutarudi kwa ground tena maandamano, but at the same time kuna wase wengi sana from the government side, UDA supporters especially, wanasema no maze, please to die handshake. I played some clips earlier where the deputy president clarified and he said this is not a handshake situation, as well as the leader of the majority National Assembly. He said the same, and people saying from the comments I've also read over here, from especially the one and only Chegelose Sanasama, the president made it clear during the campaigns that he was against handshake ya Uhuru, former president, and Raila. So why would he get into another handshake? Hizo vitu zina destabilize the government. My first question to you is, what are your thoughts about the dialogue?
I think the dialogue is important. And okay, so let me backtrack a bit. One, Kenya has a lot of historical issues juu ya siasa, juu ya elections. We have never really come to terms with IEBC. Before IEBC was ECK, remember kina Isaac Hassan, we've always had issues with that commission, yani the people who manage elections. So it's something that we really have to fix, especially if we're doing elections every 5 years. I'm happy there's a truce. I think it's important that people understand, yes, to protest demonstrations is your right. But people also must understand that results don't come out from only demonstrations. There's the demonstrations hapa nje unaweka pressure, and then there are people who are inside boardrooms who negotiate and come up with solutions and agreements. Negotiation must happen. So the fact that the truth has come in early, it's a good thing for all of us. It's a good thing. So that means we can come to the boardroom and negotiate for a solution even quicker. You don't have to call it handshake, but it's a truce. So Uhuru Kenyatta and Rao called it a handshake. Before that, Mwai Kibaki and Rao called it coalition government. This one might be called bipartisan. But let me tell you, it's going to be discussing the same things.
Really?
The same things.
Uh-huh.
But just a different title. Different title.
What are the same things? What are you talking about?
It's going to be about integrity.
From the context of former handshakes.
Yeah, it's going to be about the integrity of the election, transparency. It's going to be about involvement. All the stakeholders want to make sure that the process of elections is open. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's going to be about national values,
Yeah.
what is important to the Kenyan people. Because even you had the president mentioning the high cost of living, and they want to come up with a solution together. It's touching on issues that are affecting Kenyans. But whether it has the Kenyan people at the center of it, I don't think so.
Yeah, that's actually my next question. Kuchekizoma statements on Sunday by the government at first, and then Azimio. They're talking about IEBC, the process. So, these are some of the demands, and the president may heed to their call. Now they want to sit down and find solutions. All these are things. Me, Malili, hata nilikuwa naambia Dennis Aseto from Newswire. I'm sure I didn't really feel, people's concerned being touched on, saying with the importance that IEBC ilikuwa nayo. I didn't really feel, especially from Azimio, they didn't talk about the people who were killed, the people who their businesses were destroyed. You know what, Nerima? I don't feel like they have the people's interest at heart when it comes to this dialogue. I don't know whether you feel the same.
I feel the same, but also, Kevo, things have changed. Because if you think of when is a time you felt that the people's interest was in front, it was maybe, we can say maybe the 90s, even maybe before the constitution, where yani watu walikuwa naenda kwa streets, and when Moi was to go, that's when you guys came out and they were like, hey, 2002, by the way, Moi must go. So when it comes to organizing, especially when you see people at the forefront, it's normally the church is together, civil society is together, students are together. Yani all of us, we come together and we say, by the way, this is the one thing tumesema pamoja ni yetu. This one we're going to fight together. But right now when you look at it, the political class is in one corner. Even when you see the different press statements, even in media, you will see religious leaders giving a press statement, and they'll say the same thing. Yes, the high cost of living. Oh, we don't want vandalism. Oh, we need to support each other. We are all one Kenya. Kenya is bigger than each of us. They'll say the same thing, but why can't they even do a press statement together? They don't. And so what I'm trying to say is the only way it will be about the Kenyan people is the moment all these different stakeholders come together as the Kenyan people.
Yeah.
We can't be together if we're being brought by the political class. It
That's
will never happen.
Yeah.
It will never happen because they're already on different divisions.
Yeah.
So when they call us, we are on different divisions. But it can only be if the church says, we're coming together as the church. We're calling the people. Or students, we're coming together as university students. Or we're coming together as union workers. We're coming together as business partners and associations.
So what about ukicheki vile hii maandamano ili go down? Did it include as much stakeholders vile unasema? Were there religious groups over there? No. Were there students? Were there athletes?
Political.
Ilikuwa tu political, so you don't even judge it as a success. How would you categorize this maandamano? What was it about?
I think it was strategy to be interference. I think what it was to force government to force them into talks. So it wasn't necessarily the people have come to us and they have said they're coming out. It was politically led. And it being politically led, it's like playing a game of chess. You have to make a move.
Yeah.
So if you play your chess game and you play checkmate haraka haraka, what is the fastest way to move to the queen? You will find a way to jump steps to get to the queen as fast as possible.
Kama tulipangwa.
So we're just the pawns on the way. So the end result was this discussion where now at least they're able to negotiate whatever they want to negotiate on both ends. Whatever they want to come to terms with, they will come to terms with.
Yeah.
But I think what we need to push for, it's not too late to have the voice of the citizen. It's not too late. In fact, civil society, even students, they can organize themselves. You know, there's so many of them.
Lakini sahi watu wanaogopa kwanza vile police wali react. The other day students, comrades wa you mentioned Derrick Omondi. Comrades walikuwa na pressa pale Chester House.
I know, and then they were
remember
arrested.
so
I know.
when you see things like those, watu kuanga my youth kuanga intimidated, wanasema ati what Nerima, me I go out there alafu nitekwe utani bail out. I mean,
by the way,
protesting is a good thing. It's been happening since time immemorial in different countries, even in the Western world. France wamekuwa na protests zingine noma. Kenya, this thing is discouraged. It almost has a sense. Ata Raila wenyewe ausemanga, guys, no, please, let's not protest. Let's maintain peace. Let's settle for what we have, for what we know. Almost like a sense of Stockholm syndrome. Tuzoe tu hali ya maisha hii tuko nayo, so that business is as usual. What are your thoughts?
But I don't understand why as Kenyans we feel like that is a solution, because sometimes I feel so bad nikiona WhatsApp yangu and people are constantly asking for money to help with a hospital bill or a funeral, or even these days someone can be asking you for even 100 bob to help them with food for the day. Yet all those things they're asking for is a government service. Like, I feel like Kenyans, we don't realize, by the way, the one who's letting us down is Gava. Like, these guys are supposed to be able to provide us with drugs in the hospital and things like that.
Yeah,
and that's why we pay for NHIF. Like, we're supposed to have access to that. So, I think a lot of times, what ends up happening is we don't see the root cause of the issue. We just see that there's a problem here, yani tunaona symptoms, and we just find a way to put a bandage on the problem, but we're not seeing that we actually have to disinfect and remove so that we actually heal proper. We don't. And I think a lot of, especially youth, they don't understand the way Gava works, and then they don't elect the right leaders, and then they come and complain about the bad leadership and the bad governance. We already feel I can't do anything about it, so why bother? Why give up? But I think that even we're so resilient. Sometimes, you know, the way you're asking me if I wake up mapema, and my offices, they used to be in Tao, we just moved, but sometimes I would get to Tao, even sometimes 6 a.m., and you're seeing guys, yani they have walked into Tao. We are so hardworking. Yani we really sweat. Guys have like 2-3 hustles to be able to make ends meet. But at the end of the day, nasikia vibaya. Like, you work this hard and then you have nothing to show for it. I think we should be more upset that this country doesn't love young people. It doesn't.
Wow, that's a serious statement you made there.
This country doesn't love young people.
Yeah.
You even rather travel to another country to get a job. Ukipata kazi unatoka.
So una dhani gava imeperformaje when it comes to the youth agenda in a scale of 1 to 10?
I don't think it has performed well. I think for me, the scale would be at 5. And I'm saying 5 because of even that hustler fund, which I don't know if that 500 bob inasaidia watu. But I would say that it's at 5, because young people is not just about entrepreneurship.
Manze.
It's not. Guys, saizi hawako shule. School fees is insane. Even you thinking of going to uni, even technical, you can't afford. CBC right now is crazy. So even the things that young people should have access to, hatuna. Kazi hakuna. I
don't know why people imagine that you can entrepreneur your way out of anarchy and poverty. Wanasema, use hustler fund. You know, I started my business with 500 shillings. There was an MP who came here kanza kuniambia hivyo. You hustler fund yo unasema Kev. He you know what I started with? Nilianza na 500. And I was hawking and I told the guy, Buddha, not all youth want to be entrepreneurs. I don't know why people imagine you can actually grind your way out of this mess that we're in. Ati now you start a business and shida ni zile. Bills are so expensive, you know. You even just food in itself, electricity. Kwanza hata mambo electricity hata. Let me ask you, what ukicheki dialogue, was it because of pressure from the West? You know, Americans, if you know what I mean. Ama my leaders walikuwa wanataka tu kukaa down,
no.
watafute ma solutions
Pressure.
for the sake of Kenyans.
Ilikuwa pressure.
Hawakuwa wanadai kubonga.
Did you see them days before? Both of them were like, we're not even going to dialogue, you know?
Yeah.
We don't
that
dialogue.
guy should retire. We only going to dialogue about his retirement. Hey.
And then you just see a few meetings over the weekend.
Yeah.
Alafu unaona press statement usiku za Sunday.
Yeah.
You're like, what is going on?
Hey.
Hiyo ni pressure. Hiyo ni pressure. So even the way they turned so quickly, but also there's a lot of interference. You know, for us to think that we actually run things on our own, you know, we have to think.
Yeah.
Sometimes if you're being given money by somebody, a lot of money, because right now our government receives a lot of aid, a lot of foreign aid, and even we are in debt because of foreign aid. How can you not obey or follow when you're being given direction by these people who are giving you money? Money is a big thing.
That's right.
And even if you look at historically, let me tell you, when Moi stepped down in 2002, if you look at the months before he stepped down, there was pressure. There was a lot of pressure from the West. In fact, if you look at IMF, a lot of banks stopped giving funding to Kenya in the 90s. And they said in 2000, if Moi does not step down, Kenya is not going to receive any funding. And they stopped. And so you can see how even foreign governments can influence our leadership here at home. A lot of youth don't know that happened.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of behind the scenes agreements that occur that force our presidents to tulia, our presidents to cool down. You might want to go in a particular direction, but you can't.
Yeah, that's the feeling I got. Yeah, you can tell that the people who are calling shots behind the scenes. And now these people, what do you think their agenda is in the long run? Do you think, is it just for the businesses to thrive? For them it's just about money? They genuinely think the best form of governance for a country like Kenya is a handshake situation? Is that the best system for us? Is that what this international community are thinking, that hapa hivi hakuna kitu kama winner takes it all?
So the international community has interests, and a lot of interests is in business. Every country right now is about making money. We have to survive. And right now we survive on the economy of resources. There's a lot of things that are happening globally. I don't know if you've seen, there's some countries who have ditched the dollar to trade with gold. This is big. The dollar controls, because most countries utilize the dollar for trade. And that's how the US is one of the richest countries, if not the richest in the world. And you realize a few days ago, our president signed an agreement, US-Africa agreement. And there's so many things on that agreement, including tax relief, including 30% of shares that normally belong to Kenyans was dropped. This is a very big deal, because it means that foreign investors can come into Kenya, build a business, but it doesn't have to be owned by Kenyans. You can come into this country, make money out of this country, and take all that money back out. So, of course, they are interests. And for a lot of foreign governments, interests is money. And for you to be able to have money, you have to have control.
Right.
And it leaves our governments in a trap. Because how do we have countries, and I saw a video going around on Twitter which made so much sense. It was a Ghanaian member of parliament. He said, I don't understand why the VP for US, Kamala Harris, is doing an Africa tour. And he says, I don't understand how she can come to Ghana and tell us about human rights. And she's talking about LGBTQI and supporting human rights. But that same week, a 20-year-old white female, well, identifies herself as male, went and shot children in a school. They have no sense of gun control. and they have no policies around gun control. So even when we look at how governments or these foreign relationships, they come and tell us this is how a democracy should be, but they have their own challenges at home.
Exactly.
They have their own challenges at home, so they'll judge us for how our leaders govern us, but they don't look at themselves and see that even us, by the way, tuko na shida na venye tunafanya viongozi. We have a problem ourselves.
Yeah.
They know how to point fingers at Africa.
Well, I think it goes back to that previous point you made, where I give you the money, so no matter how I live my life, I'm still running your agenda. Yeah, you're my slave.
You're my slave.
Yeah, you know, sasa shida bana. When we're given loans by these nations out there, you kind of have to heed to their demands. Now, I'd like for you to touch on your maneno ya handshake. Does it seem, because ukiangalia ile handshake ya, first of all, for the longest time ever, Raila amekuanga na handshake with the Moi government, especially when he was made Secretary General, just to stabilize the situation in the country. Lafu pia Kibaki government, unfortunately, something bad. Let's do the 207, post-election violence. Uhunye, the handshake situation, and now once again calls for some sort of dialogue, some sort of sit down, have a conversation, so that the country can stabilize. Yeah. So, my question to you is, Nerima, could it be that Sisi Africa, we're just a different kind of country, where the normal model of democracy in our kuko maju, lakini hapa, we're too many tribes, too many stakeholders. There's no way a winner can have it all and go with it all. However, just like the believers of BBI, believers of the handshake, wanasema, let everyone have a stake. Wase kila mtu ako involve, accommodate everyone. First of all, have a listen to what our Deputy President, actually a leader of majority, had to say.
I can confirm the President has not even met with Raila Odinga. He has not even spoken to Raila Odinga, leave alone meeting, leave alone a handshake. Therefore, there is nothing touching on a handshake. The bipartisan approach is an approach that looks at the interest of the country over and above the partisan interest. Because I may have my own interest from the Kenya Kwanza side, or the Kenya Kwanza interest. Azimio may have their own interest that may not necessarily, the partisan interest may not necessarily be the interest of the Kenyan people. And therefore, we are looking at a bipartisan approach that will carry the interest of the nation above partisan interests. And that's basically the definition of the bipartisan approach, other than the partisan approach that could
right.
be
So
one side,
I think he's made his point.
And it has
Anasema, there's nothing like a handshake. He had to constantly clarify. Also, the Deputy President had this to say. Have a listen.
Huyu mzee akipitia njia ya kando, akuje aingie kwa handshake, aharibu serikali yetu, mtu ya kuulizwa ni mimi. Kwa hivyo mimi nitahakikisha. Kwa hivyo rais, kama unaweza kuwa na mipango kama hiyo, utakuwa tayari kupambana na mimi. Siwezi kubali. Hatuwezi kubali kwa sababu atatuharibia.
Yeah, so East of Nerima, could it be that enyewe, let's just call a spade, too many players, hapa hivi handshake is the only way. Wacha kila mtu akwe kwa table.
So there's a lot of people saying that Kenya can work with a parliamentary system, where whoever Kenyans elect within, say, member of parliament, the majority party is the one that now selects a president. Very similar conversations in BBI because of the conversation of the prime minister position. There are countries where you don't have to vote for a president, right? And they work. And even when you look at countries like Switzerland, they'll elect even up to 5 presidents. And you only are president for 1 year. And then you hand over like that. It rotates amongst the states. Yes. So I do think that Kenya does need to have a serious conversation about leadership and representation. Maybe this presidency doesn't work for us. And there are other ways that we can be governed that work better for us.
Unafaa explore other ways.
I think we can.
Unadhani gani ndo poa? As Nerima.
As Nerima, I think parliamentary would work because we trust how, like, say, members of parliament have been elected. Over there, we don't see a lot of maneno. And even the ones who have issues, they go to court. And if there's an issue, there's a by-election. So they'll have another election, and that issue is cleared.
Yeah.
The one that leads to major violence is the presidency, the executive. But also, what has been mentioned when you're talking about bipartisan, partisan, handshake, no handshake, I want us to look at handshake. What was discussed in handshake? There was a 9-point agenda. I don't remember all the 9 points, but I can tell you, one of them was national cohesion. That was there. Another one we talked about national values. That was there. Another one that we talked about was elections and the integrity of the elections. That was there. We talked about devolution. That was there. I will not be surprised. Whatever you want to call this, bipartisan, partisan, non-partisan, those same points I have said
copy
here on
paste.
this show will be copy-paste. So you don't have to call it handshake. We don't have to see two people greeting hands. They don't have to meet. They don't have to talk. But let me tell you, the document that will be produced from this bipartisan dialogue, it will be almost a replica of what was produced under handshake.
Okay, sawa. So at 8:36 Nerima, easy ma conversations, a handshake, nini. I mean, for how long will they continue? Juu mina cheki, for example, your story, a 9-point agenda. Okay, devolution, nini. At least they focus on institutions, I guess. Yeah. Lakini, right now, the impression was saying you wanna get ni, we're focusing more on individuals. Because, number one, mbona kuna watu hii country hawezi kubali results za elections. In fact, there are many Kenyans who are saying, yeah, election ilikuwanga free and fair. This is probably the best managed elections tushai kuwanga nazo. Yeah? Does it mean that tutaendelea tu yani kukuwa na hii kitu ya nimepinga, I'm going to petition, sijui maandamano, nini, before you know it? Can you please sit down and dialogue? Is it really about the personality ama institutions at this particular point in time for Kenya and our governance system right now? Are we saying that, for example, let me call a spade a spade. Raila has to be accommodated for business to be as usual, for things to just run, for stability to be there, for things to run as usual, for us to be a normal country. Are we saying that Raila has to be accommodated?
I don't think we're saying that, because I want us to look at Raila of not just of this year of 2022, 2023, the Raila of even the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s. He has played a major role that we cannot take for granted. There's a lot of change, especially in access to our democracy, that he has brought about, and that we cannot ignore. This election, maybe it was one of the best run, it was clear, but we're also seeing cases of procurement issues, lack of funding, things of processes that are, they're looking like they're not correct. So it's also not 100%. But also in a certain election where we know he actually won the election, okay? He won the election and it was taken from him. So we cannot just erase that part of history away, because we're talking about very heavy subjects. And the problem, once you cry wolf, sometimes it's true, sometimes it's not true. And when you cry wolf too much, it can be a moment of truth, but people don't believe you.
Okay.
And because you have cried for help too many times. So I think it's not just about one individual. Frankly speaking, I think that our administration needs pressure coming from somewhere. We need a sense of opposition in any democracy that is healthy. We cannot all agree with our president. We should not all agree with our president. When we begin to see a shift where everyone agrees with everything, we need to be worried. Because even you in your own house, there are some things that you do that maybe even your family member does not agree with you.
Of course.
That's a healthy household. That's a healthy household. So why, when it comes to government, you want everybody to be the same thing, the same frame of mind, the same thought. So I do think that he is perceived to be difficult by a lot of people. But I do think that we live in a world that has difficult people. And we should learn from difficult people.
Of course, and they add value in one way or the other because of their difficultness.
Yes.
By the way, now speaking of which, because I see we're about to wrap up, about the 2022 general election, Raila Odinga mentioned that he has issues with it. He has made it clear that he won the election. Part of his demands that I guess led to this dialogue, alikuwa nasema restructuring IEBC, reconstituting it in fact, right? So history losing him saying kura zake zilibiwa, how will it play out in the dialogue?
So there's a time when we had IPPG, and this was during the NAC government before Mwai Kibaki. IEBC, these conversations are important because we cannot structure an IEBC selection panel that appears to be one-sided. Let me take us through a bit of history. So IPPG had representatives from government, representatives from opposition that now were able to form this committee to make sure that the process of elections is transparent. Why this is important is because the Kriegler report mentioned certain challenges that IEBC has. Chebukati entered in 2017, January. Our election was toward the end of the year. He literally had a few months to learn the secretariat and the commission itself. Now, this secretariat, by the time Chebukati came in, had more power than the chair of the commission himself. When you're dealing with two entities of power managing an institution, you are going to find conflict. And I think it is important that we discuss the formation of IEBC. Because when Mwai Kibaki came, he found IPPG. And I don't know who told him what happened. He decided, we're going to ignore IPPG. In fact, I am the one who selects the IEBC panel. That is what happened. As soon as an IEBC, an institution that is supposed to be independent, is being selected by the president, you lose your independence and credibility. That's where we started being hit. So when President Kibaki says, I will be the one who selects this IEBC commission, we begin to see a fall in terms of credibility of the commission. So I think these discussions are going to bring back IPPG. They're going to bring back having different voices on the table. It is important that people who are in IEBC also understand how political parties work. It's also important that they are not appointed a few months to the election. Because when you look at the Cherera 4, they all came together. And they came a few months before the election. We had a group that had been there for a very long time, 2 years before them. And they had already formed their own clique within IEBC. So I'm glad that we're having this discussion now. Because it means we have 4 years to another election.
But what about the issue, his election being stolen? How does it play out in the dialogue?
In the dialogue,
because it's going to be brought up, I'm assuming.
Yes, because we always need to do a review. We always have to evaluate. But he'll have to prove how his election was stolen.
Atafungwa sava kweli? Will that be the demand? Will the president hit to that demand?
I think no. The president will not hit to that demand, but he's definitely still going to demand for it. Yes, he is. The courts said that the servers should be opened. It is actually insane that court orders are being ignored.
Manze, so do you think it's going to be a smooth process kwa hii dialogue?
No, it's not going to be smooth. I don't think either side is going to get everything that they want. There's going to have to be a compromise. They are going to have to balance.
And that's where we need leadership. Somebody has to be the bigger person. What do you think is going on in the mind of DP Gachagua and Kimani Ichung'wah? By the way, tutakuwa na Kimani Ichung'wah in the next hour, leader of the majority for National Assembly. We're going to be talking to him about just his thoughts about the dialogue. But what do you think is, because say walikuwa na hard stance, they said I played the clips you heard. But what do you think is going on in their minds? Because kwanza wa Kenya wamekuwa kibonga. People saying how chances are high DP is pissed. Maybe he was in the dark about the dialogue. I don't know. What do you think is happening?
I think that the president has played it a little bit differently. When the handshake occurred, President Ruto was obviously in the dark. not even being present at Harambee House and watching it with the public. So when I saw the press statement and to see DP Gachagua there, you can see that he has a completely different approach. There are some things that the president is not able to share with the DP just because of his role and the office that he holds. But you can see that he's trying as much as possible to involve him in the process as openly as possible. So it's a different approach. Number two, the president agreed to a truce way sooner than President Uhuru Kenyatta.
Yeah,
Way
fast
sooner.
time. Hey.
Way sooner.
Yeah,
yes.
way sooner.
Yes.
Yeah.
So demonstrations were not even for 2 weeks. And he was already willing to have a truce. So you can see the different personalities. I do think that there's a bit of a surprise at how quickly things have changed.
Yes.
And I do believe we're going to see a lot of that coming. I don't think the DP or the member of parliament even understands the amount of pressure that is under the president right now. Nobody does, except Uhuru Kenyatta, because he has been there before.
You think he's behind this dialogue, Uhuru Kenyatta? Do you think he has a hand in it?
I would believe so, because he says to have been supportive during the entire campaign. So why stop now? I'd believe so.
Exactly. All right, guys. #Morning Vibes. We've been hanging out with the one and only Nerima, Wako director, Siasa Place. Tumekuwa tukiongea about the real impact of the handshake. I hope umejibamba. She's dropped some bars up. Hivyo kama uko na maswali, comments, nini, I'm going to be reading them as we continue with the show. Remember, tupatane hapo hivyo kwa handle yetu @Vibes Radio KE. The hashtag is that's yo to Kev and Brian Morning Vibes. Thanks a lot, Nerima. Imekuwa fiti sana.
You're welcome.
Let's hope there will be lasting peace.
Yeah,
in the country.
That's
but also,
what matters.
It's true, Maze. What woman? Kwanza us as youth. Hey, I don't know. The future of this country when it comes to youth is scary. It's like climate change.
Because Kevo, we can't build business. We can't have access to opportunities, build stability. It has to be peaceful for us to build biashara.
We need to grind. We need to keep it moving. We need to keep it moving. And also we need functional institutions. Yes. Thanks a lot, Nerima.
Karibu.
8:47 right now. We're coming back in just a bit. Good morning, Kenya.